can never find a true ultimate combination of corners, of elevation, of overtaking opportunity, and pure roller coaster thrill ride than you can where we are here today. This is Interlagos. This is the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache. This is a place which, time and again, it has proven to be one of, if not the very best circuits in the world. There are a lot of places out there that often produce subpar racing. This as a place which can do it all as an opener, as a closer, as a middle style race. This is the track of all tracks that you go out there and say, this has to be put on the calendar. This is the eFormula series. This is the third season. This is also the third round of the championship, the Brazilian Grand Prix at Interlagos. I'm Jake Sperry here on ESPN, the Esports Broadcasting Network, joined alongside by one Mr. Frank Marchese. And Frank, we're just reaching the outer fringes of practice right now. We'll soon be moving over towards qualifying. And we've seen a very, very turbulent front of the field to start off this season. There haven't been any guarantees over the course of all of the action we've done so far. So what we can say is we're still trying to figure out where the form book lies.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been incredible to watch this all season, the first two races, because the guys that we were expecting to be up towards the front haven't necessarily been there. And brand new guys to the series. Last week's winner, Pavel Vasiliev. Javier De La Fuente seems to have a very good car here this week. Christoph Boozy is here again. He's at the top of the timing pylon right now. Max Shabley's up there as well. This is exactly what we were hoping for out of Season 3, and we're getting it so far right at the very beginning.
We certainly are. It's going to be a 42-lap race today, or an hour and 5 minutes on the clock, whichever should go first in terms of this sort of battle. And we'll be keeping an eye out on all of the developing stories over the course of racing here today. But their focus is going to very swiftly be moving over from practice to qualifying as the checkered flag does come out then here around this wonderful Interlagos track. But the key now is going to be 15 minutes to put your best foot forward. We've seen in practice with Christoph Boozy at the top that practice is absolutely not everything. We've seen the quote-unquote bags of sand being put in the cars, drivers not wanting to show their true hand until qualifying comes out. And the mad scramble right now coming out of the pit is won by Matt Quinn in the number 22. So he will be the first one out there looking to make something happen. And really, you cannot understate how important this track has been for motorsport. You can go back to 91 and Senna's incredible win when he only had fifth gear available. What about those fantastic season finales at 2007 and 2008 for the F1 World Championship? Those go down in history, as does the 2012 one on top of that. So this really here, Frank, is a wonderful circuit that will forever be memorialized as a track probably up there in terms of legacy like Suzuka.
Yeah, it's a great racetrack. It's a great facility to race. It's a very nice mix of fast straightaways, tight corners, slow middle sectors like what we're seeing Matt Quinn go through right now. It's a perfect blend of everything, and throw some elevation change into the mix as well just to make it that much better. It's a track that's always provided great racing, especially here last season at the end.
And that's something as well that goes incredibly understated about, I would say, track design and track building around the world these days, is that you really do struggle to see, I would say, drastic elevation change.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll ride on board here with Matt Quinn as he goes down into turn number 1. This is a very, very steep drop with a couple of tight corners here. So that's exactly what you're talking about. You think of Coda, where you go straight up for the first hairpin. This is almost identically the opposite way. Long straightaway here, very tight corner coming up. Through here, you got to really wait to get the car straightened down to put the power down. Then you're full throttle all the way up this hill here into turn 6. A very long turn. You have to be very patient on the throttle here. Hard braking zone, tight right-hander, downhill left-hander. It's one of the more difficult corners to get, whether you're in this or whether you're in an F1 car. It doesn't seem to matter. Another very tight right-hander, keeping you slow, keeping you honest. A good setup here, should get you full throttle all the way through here. Final corner, we saw a lot of drivers at the end of last season really have a lot of issues there in that final corner. And then up this big hill, full throttle all the way till you get to turn number 1. Just an absolutely classic layout of the track.
Absolutely. Through the last 2 corners, which don't feel like corners because you're flat out through there, Archibankidas and Skidados box says. But Paul Ilbrink, 120.6, just behind Matt Quinn, has just put his fastest time in. But Christoph Bouzy goes to a 120.2, 3/10 clear of Pavel Vasiliev. It's going to be key to see how Christoph Bouzy does, because he is the leader of the Privateers Championship by a large margin. And the big key in terms of Christoph Bouzy's charge at the moment is that he's now got a new rival to think about in terms of that championship, in the form of IM Kieman, the Steltenpool outfit, or the White Devils as they were, effectively breaking apart, meaning that IM Kieman, once again, back on his own.
Yep, and Jens Steltenpool also naturally a part of that, now going to the Privateers Championship. But Bouzy has a very solid lead in that championship at the moment. I think it's a good 15 points. We'll show you the standings a little bit later on. But still, Bouzy with his very good start to the season, and now at Road America, and then the great run finishing second at VIR last week. Very good start to the season for him.
Yes, and that very good start to the season will be one that he will definitely want to continue at the moment. Danny Hoekstra in 4th, and a good first lap there by Max Shapley up there in P5. He's been a little bit hit and miss, hot and cold around certain circuits, but it looks like today he's found a circuit that he very much likes in the form of Interlagos.
Yeah, and Shapley, he had a couple of issues back at Road America to start the season. Then last week, he had a couple of small little off tracks, was able to finish up in the top 5. So Shapley has shown that he has the pace and he has the ability to race with these guys. And I believe, if I remember correctly, he was 3rd at the end of the practice session. So he's got some speed under that Atomic Racing machine today.
He does. He's just moved up to 5th place once again, because Alvarez, Browning and Kieman all improved. And suddenly Dave Guild finds himself with a bit of pace. He moves up into P2 with a 120.334, which puts those 2 Tulip Racing cars then 2nd and 3rd at the moment, with Danny Hoekstra up in 3rd. Now, if you'd have said this last season, when it was absolute domination at the front from Manuel Domingo and Paul Ilbrink and the likes of Lubomir Moric, you'd have said really here, Frank, that this was going to be one where those sorts of drivers weren't going to be best placed. Dave Guild pulls it off to the side then and decides he wants a brand new car. But Bouzy, Guild, Hoekstra, I'm not sure anyone had that at the start of the season.
No, because we saw flashes of it last year from Christoph Bouzy, that he can be that kind of driver. It was just for him, it was the consistency of not being able to be here every single race out. Now it appears as though he's found that consistency. He's running 2nd in the points right now. This is certainly going to be a big year for him, as IM Kieman jumps up into the 4th position with what appears to be a Benetton.
It does appear to be a Benetton out there, and in fact, it's very much a 1994 Benetton.
Yes, it is. A beautiful car as well. A lot better to see than his normal, just I believe it's flat black and yellow.
Yep, it very much normally has been, as we've seen those times go around. So IM Kieman jumping up then into P4 out there at the moment. Mark Ponick as well has jumped up a couple of places. He finds himself now in 7th position. 17 drivers here today looking to qualify. The last 2 haven't yet set a lap. Leonardo Fabian and Esteban Guadarrama out there on track have yet to put those times in. Guadarrama just about starting now that first flying lap.
Yeah, and it's another guy we don't see right now has kind of made it normal to be showing up late is, as you mentioned before, Manuel Domingo. He wasn't here last week, possibly looking as though he may not be here this week, but we have seen him come in the last couple of seconds of the qualifying session before.
We certainly have. Javier Alvarez has moved to 5th position, as Paul Ilbrink, with a fastest 3rd sector out there on circuit, has jumped up into fourth on a 120.346. So he'll be looking to try and wrest back a bit of control as the only reigning champ, or not necessarily reigning champion, but the only champion that is in this field for the eFormula series. Of course, he took the inaugural season outright, but he's in fourth position right now, and he'll be searching for a good qualifying because he really did struggle last time out when we were here.
It's not that he's searching for a good qualifying, he's just searching for consistency. That's something he has not had really since this race last season. We saw him have make a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes here last year. We saw the atrocious run that he had at Zandvoort, made a couple of mistakes at Road America, and then just completely off the rails at VIR. So he's just looking to find his form back, let alone a good qualifying time.
Yeah, and you can also put Long Beach as the, I would say, onus on that as well. So that will be worth keeping in mind. Track temperature out there on circuit is surprisingly cool for Brazil, I would have to say here, Frank. It's 26 degrees, which I would put as ideal operating temperature because Danny Herkstra has just gone fastest on a 120.120.
Yep, by essentially 23 hundredths of a second over Christoph Boozy. A very good run, and Hoekstra, talking about a guy who needs a good run. Hoekstra missing the race last week. Now he can use that as a drop week for him come the end of the season. But this is getting back to form for Danny.
It is, and for Danny Herkstra, 23 thousandths is exactly the sort of margin that he needs to be putting down on the boards they go through. And this is going to be an interesting session in qualifying because we're already effectively 9 minutes out of the 15 through this qualifying right now. So they've still got that work to be done at this moment. Of course, they are allowed to finish the laps they start at the end of the 15 minutes. But Frank, they're going to have to be really alert to how this track is going to react because the longer that they're all going to be out there on circuit trying to put laps in, of course, that track will rubber in as part of iRacing's dynamic track, and it will get a little bit easier to start with, but at some point, that track's going to start falling away again the other way.
Yeah, absolutely, and you got to be ready in case that happens in a way that you're not expecting, as we see Hoekstra go across the line again, jumping on board with Mark Ponick now, who's just crossing the line. It's certainly one of those things that these guys are going to have to be watching out for all race long. It's not easy to run one of these cars, and we see how quick and how fast somebody can make a mistake and completely ruin a lap time. And if you're not looking out for that track evolution, that could certainly dampen a lap.
This is probably the closest qualifying I have seen all season long here, and the longest I've been here. Top 10 right now are split by half a second.
Yeah, and that has to do with the fact that this is one of those racetracks that you always race at. You always seem to find yourself at. And because it's such a classic racetrack, it's in so many games. As Dave Guild is on an absolute flyer here. Green in the first sector, purple in the second and third. He could be on for a pole here as he goes green again, personal best in the fourth.
Oh, he's just slightly messed up the junction corner, Jun Sao, as he goes on through. He missed the apex. Will that be the one that costs him on this lap? He's got 0.2 of a second to find. He's chasing Danny Herkstra down, his own teammate, so he'll get that as a little bit of help. Herkstra does a 20.2, but that is a 120 flat from Dave Gill. Tulip Racing have turned up to the party today. They are 1 and 2 with 4 minutes to go.
This is a David Guild I haven't seen yet so far, and we've been here since pretty much the back end of season 1. This is incredible to watch from David Guild. He really put in a lot of time over these last couple of weeks and has showed up with an absolute rocket ship here.
He certainly has. I'm sure he's buoyed by the fact of that very strong result he had last week at VIR. I believe it was a third-place podium that he managed to get himself, and he's carrying that momentum, saying this is the time. Vasiliev up to fourth with a 120.269. He is someone who did very well last time out, picked up the victory, and now the number 11 is really trying to knock on the door. Fourth position right now. We're in for a treat if qualifying is anything to go by at this point in time.
Ilbrink went personal best all the way around the track, put himself up into second position at an 0.83. So not that far off of Guild. Is the one of the two champions in this series coming down, trying to set themselves up for the final lap. There's Danny Hoekstra right there with him as well.
Yep, Max Shabley's just jumped up to 9th position with that time. Danny Hoekstra, of course, is looking for times out there on track, so he'll be gearing up. Christoph Boozy will be gearing up, and in these final laps, they're going to have to be alert. Guild, of course, did have a fastest first sector out there of anybody, but couldn't match anything else going on through the time, just evaporating as he was trying to get as much as he could out of it. But we are really in that crunch time period. 2 minutes to go. You've got to be out there on track now, trying to get out and put a lap on the board. Otherwise, you are stuck exactly where you are.
Yep, Hoekstra just went in for a slide, but you want to talk about how close this session has been and how close these guys at the top are. Their last laps in, Danny Hoekstra's third sector time was a 17.03. Boozy was a 17.05. Guild was a 17.06. Ilbrink was a 17.08. That's exactly how close these guys are through that third sector, which I believe is where Christoph Boozy is right now.
Yeah, that very much is the case. We'll be seeing those times. Marcellus Bruning jumping up then and gaining a few bits of time. We're gearing up for those final laps then as they look to cross the line. So Dave Guild currently on top at the moment as Shabley jumps up to P6 with a 120.404. Guild can't improve on his qualifying lap this time, but he's got one more if he needs it. And a lot of drivers will be looking at that one more if they should need it. Boozy looking to make a drive to the line. He's in 4th, and he takes that very narrow attempt to go over the line, and that's only a 120.5. He's gearing up.
Absolutely, he is trying to time himself to where he can possibly finish and get another lap in. Esteban Guadarrama in the 14th position right now, racing for Rebellion Black on personal best through the first, third, and fourth sectors coming across the line now. Guadarrama will jump himself up into 11th, so a very good time for Esteban.
Yeah, an incredible time by him as he crosses. No improvement for Mark Ponick. He was 3,000ths out as he crossed. Still another lap available for him and Paul Ilbrink, who does not improve on his lap time. Alvarez then can't improve just yet either. Rogenbach will get one more attempt, as will Danny Hoekstra, as he will cross the line with about 10 seconds remaining on the clock here, maybe a little bit less. As he makes it to the stripe, he won't get anything. Quinn's got one more lap in the back pocket as well. De La Fuente will be the first then as the checkered flag comes out here in qualifying. Everybody now keep an eye on the bottom of your screen. These are where the battles all come in. 21-2 from De La Fuente. Can't do enough. Boozy's off the road. He won't be able to improve on his lap times. Guild is in the pit. Only Ponick, Rogenbach, Guadarrama, and then the likes of Hoekstra, Quinn and Keeman out there on circuit. I think Keeman is just out there getting a bit of practice then as he goes through. It didn't look like he crossed the line at all. So the focus going to be on those drivers. Mark Ponick taking the rise up the hill. He's hoping he's got a good time. He got a green second sector down up on the board. So he's done well, but he is just a little bit behind what he wants to be at here is Mark. He's trying everything to make that drive to the line. 4.63 his best so far. And that is a, 20.229.
Wow.
He gets ahead of Vasiliev to P5. Mark Ponick with a fantastic lap time out there on the board. And the focus on Hoekstra, who also did his best second sector out there. He's got draft all the way to the line now. He's got the use of Guadarrama, who pulls it into the pits. Here goes Danny Hoekstra. Has he done enough? Oh, he hasn't, but it is a front row lockout for Tulip Racing. Great effort as he came to the line and tried to get everyone done in qualifying. Grid will look as follows. Dave Guild takes his first pole position in this series, a 120.007. Is he driving an Aston Martin? No, he's driving Tulip Racing. He's got his teammate Danny Hoekstra alongside in the number 91, with Paul Ilbrink starting from 3rd and Christoph Boozy there in 4th position. Mark Ponick starts this one in 5th, with Pavel Vasiliev there in 6th position. Maybe you could say a poor qualifying, but when you're only 2/10 off, that is a very, very tough qualifying, with his teammate Max Shabley in 7th and Javier Alvarez for Positive Sim Racing in 8th. 9th position will go to IM Keeman, with Jeff Browning in the Tulip Racing USA car rounding out the top 10. Then following on back, your Esteban Guadarrama there with Matt Quinn and Javier De La Fuente, Marcellus Bruning, Leonardo Fabian in P15, Jean-Michel Gagnon, maybe a little bit down there in qualifying, and Alexander Rogenbach makes the 17 here, Frank, that get themselves ready today.
What an absolutely incredible qualifying. And if that qualifying has anything, it gives us anything to go off of for this race, I am so excited for how these next 42 laps are going to turn out.
Absolutely. And this is going to be an interesting start because those drivers on the front 2 rows of the grid, normally you'd say it's the front 4, but they don't use the front 4 grid stalls out there on track. The front 2 rows are on an uphill trajectory, and you look at every driver back, they either have a downhill or a neutrally flat start to this race. So they may have a better get off and go off the line. So you look at the likes of Ponick, Vasiliev, Chablis, and Alvarez. They've got a really good chance here today to make something happen. Of course, 1 pit stop will be required. All of these drivers will have to be very alert. So I believe we've got all 17 on the grid. So the lights are on, and we are racing here from Interlagos. 42 laps getting a start. Gild's got a really good run here as they run towards turn number 1, but Hoekstra's going to send one down the inside, and Danny Hoekstra takes the lead through 1. Boozy there holds on to 4th position then as they go through. Ponick nicely in line. This is not the best start from Max Chablis. He's dropped 2 places, and there's dramas in the background. De La Fuente around. Leonardo Fabian just skirting around Marcellus Bruning as they collided in the back.
Yep, that was a big, big moment there for those guys. We'll go back and take a look at it in just a moment. But up at the front, Paul Ilbrink has gotten around Dave Gild, and Ilbrink he's not clear either. He's got Gild trying to battle back, and Christophe Bouzy there as well. Max Chablis has gone around as well, and the 72 has gone off.
Yeah, that's over at Desquita de Lago then that he's had a big moment. There was no contact. He just lost it cold tyres, all on his own with the spin. But at least for the moment, Danny Hoekstra with the race lead.
Oh, no!
Oh, no, he doesn't. In the round goes Danny Hoekstra. Just like that. Just as we were saying, he had the race lead. Vico de Pato, lap 1, all goes wrong.
He had done the same thing in the practice session when I had just flipped over to him, and it happened to have just kind of glossed over it. But he did the exact same thing, and unfortunately this time it takes him out of the race lead.
It certainly does. So Paul Ilbrink now has the lead of this race, and it's over Dave Gild in 2nd, Boozy 3rd, and Mark Ponick looking racy here in 4th position as he wants to get through. Vasiliev is 5th, Keeman is 6th, and he's gained 3 places off the start. Some great gainers in the field. Jean-Michel Gagnon is up 5 places here off the start, and he's had a pretty decent run of things.
Yep, biggest mover of the race thus far is that 12 of Gagnon, and had a big moment in qualifying, spinning out just in the same place that Hoekstra did, completely lost the back end of that car. So he's going to be keeping that in mind, certainly, as Maz, De La Fuente, and Bruning have all made it back to pit road. We'll take a look at what happened with those guys at the start of this race, just 3 wide going into the first turn. Everyone's making it through okay, and then it just looked like, I think that was the 17 of De La Fuente that had a moment, just slammed the brakes trying to recover the car and just got run over.
Very easy to be just run over in this sort of race, and they've got to be careful when you're at the back and you're fighting it out in through these couple of corners. It's easy to have a moment, and one car getting all shades of out of place, spread eagle across the middle of the road does not help things. But at least at the moment, race just starting to ever so slightly calm itself down. The battle's on at the moment. The race lead, Ilbrink versus Gild. You've got them Boozy in 3rd, who's holding the next train, as Ian Keeman just runs a little bit wide through turn 1, and that will compromise 2 and the Curva de Sol at 3. Here comes Javier Alvarez with a move.
Yep, and Alvarez, we know how good he is and how quick he can be. As Alvarez looking down into turn 4, he's got the position, he's got the line, he's got the move well done and buried. Up into 6th position for Alvarez. I'm surprised one guy we have not seen move up so much is the guy who's had so much luck over these last couple of weeks. That's Pavel Vasiliev. He's starting to make his way towards the rear wing of Mark Ponick now, but I was surprised with where he qualified, and I thought he would have made up a little bit more than he did at the start.
Well, Pavel Vasiliev just taking this one nice and gently over the start of this race, and he'll be hoping for a little bit of fun out there as drivers start to make mistakes around this track. Of course, we have to note as well that Javier Alvarez has seemingly fixed the issues he had last week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, with the gearbox, which did not quite play the way that he was wanting. There has also been a change further down. Jeff Browning has fallen behind Jean-Michel Gagnon. Gagnon now up inside the top 10.
Yep, and a very good run for him, up 6 positions, the biggest mover of the race so far. Matt Quinn up 4 positions, up into the 8th position for that number 22. So Hammer Down having a very good run today, running 4th and 8th.
They are, and they are absolutely storming. Matt Quinn, it's not a million miles away from I.M. Keeman, and he'll be buoyed on by that because Keeman's quick. Now here comes Mark Ponick here on Christoph Boozy. Fight for third, down the inside. Mark that, almost complete, runs him off of road, and he's got the move. Nicely done. Vasiliev trying to get in on this one as well, and goodbye to the top 2 because Boozy is not going to get that one done at Ferradura, the horseshoe corner, and nor can Vasiliev, so put Ponick up on the podium. Very
good pass by Ponick. Must have had a great run coming down through the Senna S's. Just able to get that run on Boozy, and unfortunately for Vasiliev, just was not able to come back at Boozy the way he would have wanted to. This has also brought Alvarez, Keeman, and Quinn right up to the back of these guys. We got a good 6-car pack here for third.
We absolutely do, and as we all know as well here, Frank, 6 into 1 podium position, there's going to be 5 losers.
Yeah, just a little bit. There's going to, I think there might be some drama in that, yes.
Well, here comes Javier Alvarez. He's got a storming run here on Vasiliev right now. So Alvarez looking to the inside, but Vasiliev doing just enough on the brakes. They remain too wide as they go through the left and the right. So it seems like Gagnon's had a moment out there on circuit. He's now fallen behind Chablis and Herkstra, so he's a little bit down. But again, here comes Alvarez. He's got to run on the inside. Keenan searching and sniffing out a move as well as they try and go through, but Alvarez again, let's keep the Interlagos. Look at Keeman try and get through. Oh, I think there was a bit of contact between those two there, and just like that, I.M. Keeman forces his way through Pavel Vasiliev.
Yeah, I think there might have been, and Keeman, we know how good he is, won that Long Beach race last year that you had mentioned. He is a very good driver once he gets into that right position, and up into 6th is Keeman. That's not surprising. It's the downward trend of Vasiliev from what he showed us in the first 2 races, I think, is what's more surprising than anything.
Yeah, and it really is showcase of these immortal style of drivers right now. They have been showing a really good run over this one. Their first season, of course, the Atomic Racing team, Vasiliev and Chablis, all trying to put that work in on the board, but at least for the time being, it's going to be all about these drivers out there towards the front who will be trying every which way to gain the points and the places that they need to put together a season. And this has been one of the things that makes the eFormula series so good to watch. It's been a case of everybody just trying to look out and work out where they need to be. And it seems like the form book has changed at every circuit we've gone to this season.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing guys from all over the grid last season now running up towards the front. It makes it just so much more entertaining when you get that parity. And speaking of parity, David Guild has not let Paul Ilbrink go. Guild isn't usually someone that's racing for the lead of these races. He's still within 3/4 of a second of Ilbrink. He has kept him in check.
Yeah, Guild has definitely kept Ilbrink honest as they head through the Pinarino there down at the bottom of the hill. They crest the rise to the Duckspill corner, the Bico de Pato. It's the slowest corner out there on the circuit as you go on through, and you try and put the power down as early as you can for Mihulo, the long sweeping left-hander. And in terms of drivers who are looking for good results, it seems like today has been all about it. Esteban Guadarrama, for example, is there up 2 places, 11th up into 9th place at the moment, and is just quietly running on his own, doing a really nice job of things.
Yeah, he is. He's having a very solid run in that number 24, up into that 9th position, as you mentioned, up 2 from where he started. He's a good 3 seconds off of Matt Quinn at the moment, but still having a very, very good run, and that's pretty much all you can ask for. Just keep the car on the racetrack, as I believe that was Danny Hoekstra in the background there getting around Jeff Browning.
Absolutely was. Browning getting well out of the way of Danny Hoekstra. He'll be trying to drive with everything he's got. He's dropped 12 seconds to the race lead that he lost on the opening lap of this race. Just the one retirement so far in the form of Marcellus Bruning. So there is that to focus and consider at this moment in time, as drivers will be looking to try and just settle down into a rhythm here. We're on lap 7 of 42, and that pit window, you would say, would go anywhere to about lap 32 here in this sort of race, Frank.
Yeah, right around there. I believe it was between lap 25 and 30 is where we saw it last year. And looking back through this field again, Vasilyev's about ready to mount a charge on Keeman. He's just waiting for one small mistake to give him that pace advantage over Keeman. He's ready to go.
He is ready, chomping at the bit, down one place from where he started, Pavel Vasiliev. He knows that his nearest rival right now, you would say in championship terms, is the 77 of Christoph Buzy, who's up there in 4th position right now. But it's worth talking about the gap at the front of the field. For the first time, it has broken outside of 1 second. Paul Ilbrink is putting together some nice laps here on the board, and he now has the gap he wants.
Yep, just put down the fastest lap of the race last time out, a full half a second faster than where he had been on the previous lap. So Ilbrink has started to turn it up now to try to build that gap. And just as I had mentioned a second ago, Vasiliev has gotten around Keeman going down into turn 4. Keeman trying to mount the attack up the hill.
You can attack up the hill, but you need to be back to the inside if you have that chance. So it's Interlagos once again. It is Pavel Vasiliev who has got the move sorted, and there is not much that you can do if you're IM Keeman except sit, wait, and watch. And the key now for Vasiliev is he's got to get to the back of Javier Alvarez, who is doing enough to keep honest with Ponick and Buzy.
Yeah, and we just saw the replay of the pass, did exactly what I said he needed to do. Got a great run coming down the Senna S's, got the run down the straightaway, was able to pass him clean before they got into turn 4.
Yeah, but that's all you need to do. Now, this is interesting, as Javier De La Fuente was about to be lapped, but has actually just pulled it off into the pits. So it seems that De La Fuente is really not having a good race of things at the moment. Has decided that he will get out of the way by taking his pit stop early, and he should be out and away. And that's going to be a really long stint for Javier De La Fuente. He'll have to go 34 laps here.
I think he's out of the car, actually, is what's happened here with the 17, which is unfortunate because Vasiliev had done, De La Fuente, pardon me, had done so good in the practice session, had such a good time in practice, was up towards the top, and unfortunately just has not translated into the race.
Sometimes that's the way it happens, though, and if you don't get exactly what you want out of it, you are going to be in a world of hurt, and it is that world of hurt that hurts De La Fuente here today. So there is still more to come along as this race will continue out there right now. Mark Ponick has been unable to really break away from Christoph Buzy, but they have good news in terms of that scrap in the form of that Javier Alvarez is looking behind now, or rather than in front, because it will be in the mirrors where the focus is going to be. We've also got a battle starting to heat up a little bit, which will come along in the next couple of laps. Danny Hoekstra finding the rear of Esteban Guadarrama.
Yep, there is Hoekstra coming, about to begin up the hill, the final 2 corners here. Also noting, Ponick and Buzy are putting in very, very comparable lap times to Dave Guild, so they're starting to catch Guild as well up there for the 2nd position, so that could be a big battle, a 3-way battle for 2nd, then a 3-way battle for 5th just behind them.
Yeah, could very easily be the case, and they'll have to be alert as well, because this is one of the strictest leagues that you will find out there for incident points, and it's very easy to run off around this Interlagos circuit, pick up one here and pick up one there. You don't want to be playing pickup because after 10 points you're in the lane for a penalty, and when you consider that an official race is 17 for an incident point penalty, to be on 10, this is strict.
Yeah, it certainly is, and road racing in these cars is not the easiest thing to do either. Now again, this is one of the tracks that you should know fairly well. It's run quite a bit in this service, and as I had mentioned, it's in a lot of other simulators and a lot of other games, so it's a track you should know. So the 10 incident limit may not seem too harsh here, but go to a track like we were at 2 weeks ago at VIR, that's a very tall ask.
Absolutely it was, but VIR was also the style of circuit where you're probably in the barriers before you are hitting that 10 incident point limit overall. So the work still needing to be done. Vasiliev with a really nice run here against Javier Alvarez. He might have a look here in towards turn number 1. He's got himself on the brake, searching for it. They've got 8 push-to-passes, and they've come together as they go down the opening section. How much damage has Vasiliev got on his car? Keeman now will definitely want to try and get in on the axe. It looks like he's got away with it, but here will come then the Benetton-inspired livery. On the outside, I.M. Keeman tries to make this move happen, and he picks it off with aplomb.
Yeah, and does a very good job of that, as well as those two just got really, really close. Nothing really that either one of them did wrong. Alvarez didn't give Vasiliev too much room to go out, nor did he really have to. So a very good run, a good defense by Alvarez, even in a position to where a defense is really difficult to mount. A little bit of a coming together. We saw down the straightaway. It looks like Vasiliev is tracking straight still, so he might just need to calm down a second.
Yeah, just give himself a lap or two, then go back to the grindstone once again. It seems like that sort of battle out there. Guadarrama is doing a really good job, though, against Danny Hoekstra. Hoekstra is not in a position where he can attack, and he is stuck at the moment.
Yeah, he certainly is, and he's going to have to get a good run here down the front straightaway. He's got all the draft just the same way he had in qualifying. And unfortunately for Hoekstra, you got to remember he did this to himself with the spin on the first lap. And here we go, coming down into turn 1. Should be pretty academic from here.
But you could say up into turn 1 because that's the highest point of the circuit. So up into 1, Danny Hoekstra gets the move done. He moves up into 9th position with that one. And he's just got a little wide there through turn 2. So this will allow Esteban Guadarrama the chance to really attack back. He'll be on the outside here, trying to pick this move back up once again. And on the brakes, just a little bit too late in comparison. All of this, well, hello, my name's Jeff Browning. I'm on the back of this one. Can you please give me a 10th place?
Yep, Browning has done a very good job. And also, while we were watching this scrap, Vasiliev has gotten back around I.M. Keeman going into turn 4. So Vasiliev now has gotten his composure back. He's working back towards the rear end of Javier Alvarez. Mark Ponick and Christoph Buzzi also getting very, very close to each other up in that 3rd position.
Yeah, they very much are. And it's a case of Mark Ponick trying to work hard to break away, but it's not seemingly worked at the moment. Buzzi is shadowed and kept honest, but you have to remember as well, last time out, Christoph Buzzi did exactly the same thing. Yep. He shadowed, he kept honest, but he couldn't get the move done in the end over Pavel Vasiliev. Are we going to see something very similar?
It's looking like what he's doing, just trying to find out where the weaknesses of Ponick are. And this is usually a spot where, look at Ponick trying to take any road he can to break that draft from the 77. And that's why it's so difficult to break away around here. There's so many long straightaways, so many chances for the driver behind to stay up with you.
Guadarrama has just lost the place to Jeff Browning on the run into 1. And he's not going to get the chance into 4. So Jeff Browning now up into 10th position. A good move, a very accomplished overtake as well. So he'll have that in the sights as this race does continue. Gap at the front, though. We said it broke outside of 1 second about on lap 6 of this race. It's lap 13, and the gap's only 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, Gild is definitely on pace. As just as we say that, Ilbrink runs wide going into, what is it, the Del Sol, right?
No, Junsao.
Oh, Junsao. Yep. See, I'll learn these eventually. Lost a full second back to Gild, and this is big because Gild now has that draft that's keeping Buzzi up with Ponick.
He certainly does, and that is the key right now because Dave Gild knows
Alvarez in.
That's going to be very key. So Javier Alvarez deciding on lap 14 he's going to go for the early stop. Now he's not going to get the draft, and he's going to be riding around with pretty much a full fuel tank. But the key for him is that he's going for a mega undercut here in terms of this strategy. But we've seen it happen before where that undercut hasn't really paid off. So this is a big gamble here by the Positive Sim Racing team boss.
Yeah, it certainly is. And the undercut doesn't work because the tire wear, it just becomes so great by the time everybody else does come into pit that it really makes that undercut useless. you need to be, if you're going to get an undercut, you need it to work within a couple of laps, not not tens of laps, which is what Alvarez is looking at right here, is trying to get it tens of laps to work. He needs like maybe 1 or 2 for that undercut to really work.
Yeah, and that will be something worth keeping in mind the longer this race goes on. How will Javier Alvarez deal with this sort of style of race? How will he bring himself back into the fray? And most crucially, how is this one going to work? Another 3/10 for Dave Guild then, as he brings the gap down to half a second. And once more, from looking like it was a case of breaking away, Paul Ilbrink has left the door open and now allows Dave Guild, a chance to really close on in. I'm sure Ponick and Boozy will be keeping a very close eye on that battle happening 5 seconds down the road from them.
We're showing you on board right now. Guild just went purple that last lap, which is why he gained so much. Ilbrink put in his fastest lap of the race at a 20.768, but David Guild responded with a 20.41. So Guild is he is on it right now.
And we have seen it from Dave Guild. He has been someone who is known to light up the practice times out there, but when it's been qualifying and race, it's not necessarily fallen the same way for him all seasons long. But now he starts to get into that tone and starts to get into that rhythm. He's really trying to make sure that Paul Ilbrink knows that he's in for a race. This isn't going to be cookie cutter. This isn't going to be a walk in the park.
Yeah, no, and Guild has lost ground this lap. Ilbrink has brought that gap out to almost a full second here, so we'll see what the time difference was there. It was a 20.81 for Ilbrink, a 21.21 for Guild that last lap. So there's a big difference in times right there, as Ponick actually quicker than Guild that last lap, although he's 4.5 seconds behind.
I'll tell you who was faster than Guild on that last lap. Ian Keeman. He was fastest of anybody whose name didn't start with Paul and ended in Ilbrink. He is there in 6th position right now, and you can see Vasiliev in front of him is actually just trying to break the toe ever so slightly and try and shake off the number 75, and that's going to be something worth keeping in mind. You're going to see a lot of quote-unquote Indianapolis tactics on those front stretches, trying to shake the draft, a little bit of movement here and there to try and make sure that, you know, you're not going to be in that draft and you're not using it to the best of your ability.
Yeah, and especially right now with the way the top 6 is, we're split in pairs. It's Ilbrink versus Guild, a good 4.5 seconds. Then it's Ponick versus Boozy, and then another 4.5 seconds. Then you have Vasiliev versus Keeman. Then it starts to string out a little bit, as the next closest battle is what we're seeing on screen right now. Jeff Browning versus Esteban Guadarrama, and Max Shabley has now gotten back up into this mix in the other atomic racing machine, the 72.
Yes, he certainly has. So the work is very much there. The gap now out over a second, and the work is going to be very much on this mid-pack. So you've got, of course, Shabley, Guadarrama, and Browning, but all 3 of them will be looking a little bit behind because it's only a 7-second gap, or now a 6-second gap to Javier Alvarez, and they'll be keeping an eye out on that sort of time as they start to battle. Jeff Browning getting close. He's now the sole remaining Tulic Racing USA car in this field as he hits the brakes, goes through the left, and nothing doing at the moment.
No, nothing quite. And also just looking back up at the front, Ilbrink just put in the fastest lap of the race at a 20.53. So he has gone purple. Guild responded with a 21.04. So that's the gap up there at the front, a good 0.6 that lap. So Guild now starting to fall off the back of Ilbrink.
Yeah, Guild does have the overall fastest lap, but Paul Ilbrink set his fastest lap of the race as they put Alexander Rogenbach 1 lap down. Now, what's crucial as well is the gap between Ponick and Boozy. That gap has skyrocketed over a second.
Yeah, it has, and it's not quite sure what had happened between the two. It must have been a blown corner by Boozy somewhere, and that is really let Ponick able to breathe. 2.5 seconds. That's a pretty nice gap, especially when you were looking at 0.2 seconds a lap before.
I found it. It was on the exit of 2. Boozy's lucky to still have a car as the back end stepped out trying to put the power down. He wiggled all the way to the outside of the curve of Dassault, and was able to keep it in check.
Well, there you go. A great save by Boozy. And again, that's big because the championship leader is right behind him, Vasiliev. Boozy making up a couple of points here by where he is. Can't make those up if you're in the garage with a bent-up race car.
Exactly, to get 6 points overall at the top. Dave Gild's actually third in the championship on 22 points right now, so this would be a bumper crop of points for him. Everyone would be closing in terms of the championship goes. And let's put this into perspective right now. We're 2 rounds into the championship here, Frank, and Paul Ilbrink's 8th.
Yeah, and that's because he had that awkward race at Road America, made a couple of mistakes that we don't usually see him make, and then we saw completely had a meltdown at VIR 2 weeks ago, and that really put him behind.
Yeah, it certainly did, and he'll be keeping an eye out on just trying to put a good race together on the books. He knows what he needs to do, and he's got to consistently run at those lap times which give him exactly what he wants out on circuit. So we haven't seen any other takers yet onto the lane. We are onto the 19th lap of this 42 lap race, and of course half distance will be scored complete at the end of the 21st lap then, as they will go on by. And really for this opening half, it's been about staying cool and staying in those positions and keeping a guy in front of you, and that's what we've been seeing here from the likes of I.M. Keeman, for example. He is not broken away, has Pavel Vasiliev. He's kept him very much well in the railroad tracks of 0.7 of a second.
Yeah, and it's been very, very close. And just as you see on the graphic there, just as Vasiliev was starting to lose ground to Keeman, he was able to really break it out last time through as they get around Rogenbuck. Keeman having a very difficult time getting around Rogenbuck, caught him at a very bad spot of the racetrack, and that's going to give Vasiliev a little bit more room to breathe now.
It certainly is. We have seen a change of position as well. Esteban Guadarrama has lost the place at turn 4 to Max Shadley, who moves up then inside the top 10 with that overtake temporarily at this moment in time, as he looks to go and try and get exactly what he needs out of it. Looks like there is no issues then for Danny Herkstra, as he was over the radio, overtaking Leonardo Fabian, putting him 1 lap down then in this race. But it's all about focus now at this point, and the key has been that every time Ilbrink has broken out over a second, somehow Dave Gild's found a way to bring it back under.
I was just about to say that. This battle up front here is fascinating. It's like a rubber band. Gild will close it down within about 0.4 of a second, and then Ilbrink will stretch it back out to about 1.6, and then Gild will bring it back in. Whether or not that's Gild finding pace or Ilbrink getting a little out of his ways and making a mistake remains to be seen. But Gild putting in a fantastic lap that last time through 0.3 quicker than Ilbrink, had just put in the fastest second sector this lap.
He certainly has, and it's showing at this moment in time how these two are very much equals at the moment as they try and go on by. Now the question will be, at what point do you decide to make that stop? That's going to be something they'll be thinking about. And of course Dave Gild, who is there now 0.6 of a second back, he's probably not had the chance to really fuel save in this race, because the moment he's tried, Ilbrink's gone.
That it could be him fuel saving, though, as to why he's going back and being in this draft. He's able to go a little bit quicker and not use as much of the car as Ilbrink is needing to, busting a hole in the air. So it might be a situation where he's actually, just as you would in a stock car around Daytona or Talladega, is actually being able to save a little bit more fuel by sitting behind Ilbrink at the moment.
I'll tell you what is interesting. We were expecting Danny Herkstra to make his charge back through the field very, very quickly, but he's just got himself stuck at around 8th place at the moment. I've just been keeping an eye out on his last few lap times, and they're not screaming out, "I can catch." It was a 21.7 that last time by. That's a full second slower than the leaders.
Full second slower than the leader, only a tenth quicker than Matt Quinn in front. So that is not representative of what we saw in the qualifying session. Now, granted, he had a lot of draft on his qualifying lap at the end to put him up into second. But even before then, he was on pole for a while, a top 5 car for the duration of the session. So, I mean, that's, oh, something big is, oh, wow. That was Quinn that he almost ran into. Quinn had made a mistake, and Hoekstra almost ran right into the side of him.
We were just saying how he wasn't catching. Well, he's been caught, and that was very nearly dramas. He was trying to get going, and that was looked at as a not brilliant rejoin there. Matt Quinn has decided, you know what, I've lit the tyres up, I'm diving down into the pit. But really not ideal for Danny Hoekstra, who's lucky he still has a race car.
Boy, on board with Hoekstra. I have no idea how Hoekstra still has the right front wing on that car. He was so close. A 1/10 of a second slower on his reaction time. His car is completely destroyed.
Yep, it could have been just as easy as that as they went on through. Leaders remain then as is at the moment, and Danny Hoekstra, well, that would have been a very scary moment for him as he tried to go on through the gap. Starting to open up now in the middle of the field. Vasiliev has now got away here from IM Keeman over a second. He is still about 4 seconds back of Christoph Boozy, who he himself is 2 seconds back now of Mark Ponick. But the front two, this is where the race is right now. Dave Guild, and they are actually running some incredibly quick times. Paul Ilbrink, the lap before last, said his fastest lap of 20.474, only to find that it was a 20.488 from Dave Guild. He didn't lose anything.
No, he did not. And Ilbrink set a 20.71 last time to Guild's 25.3. So Guild actually quicker that last time around. Guild is certainly, there's 2 ways he could play this. One, he could try to pass him now, see if he can get away from Ilbrink, or 2, he could sit behind him and try to sneak in that undercut to force Ilbrink to try to react to him.
I think that might be the latter that we'll be experiencing. Of course, his crew chief is there. Great battle going on here as Max Shabley is all over the back of Jeff Browning now. And this is going to be for 8th and 9th position on the road. You've got Esteban Guadarrama back there in 10th, also trying to keep alert to this 3-car scrap as the leaders are going around right now onto the front stretch once again. But the key is this pack scrap. This one's probably going to go all race long until the stops.
Guild fastest first and second sector that last lap, and he's going to put in a 20.54. Incredible pace. Ilbrink put in a 20.56, and it wasn't but a couple of laps ago that Vasiliev, part of the reason why he's been able to break away from Keeman is because Vasiliev has dipped into the 20s a couple of times these last couple of laps.
Yeah, he's just on a 120.8 over his last revolution of the circuit. That was a full 7/10 of a second quicker than Christoph Boozy. That brings that gap down to 2 seconds on the road. So Boozy looking backwards here because that is Pavel Vasiliev trying to chase him down. And the mark of a good driver and a great driver. I always remember watching Gregor Hutu, a legendary 5-time iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series champion, and why he was so good and why he won so many races, Frank, was because he'd be great on the in lap and he'd be great on the out lap. And I think this is what we're starting to see. We're coming to the pit window. Put your best foot forward.
Yep, hard on the brakes going in. Don't go over, and then try to get out of the box as quickly and smoothly as you can. It means a lot of time on the racetrack to be able to do something as simple as getting into pit road and getting out of your box easily. It is so critical. That could make the difference between your undercut working and not working.
Yep, it absolutely can. And this is what we've been seeing time and again. Pit stops do mean everything in this sort of series. And in comes Christoph Boozy then. He bites the bullet, end of lap 24, as he gets very aggressive with the line. Has to slow it right down as he goes on through. Christoph Boozy then making his stop. And I expect a lot of drivers will be thinking about how they go by. And where will Alvarez be in all of this?
Boozy blew the box there, so that's certainly going to hurt him. That'll put Vasiliev right on him. It's going to have to put Vasiliev right on him because Vasiliev has been putting down electric lap times. Put down a 21.14 last time around.
Slow.
And for Boozy, yeah, it is. He's still not out of the box. He might have been caught speeding.
I think he got caught speeding. You go from the highest speeds of nearly 300k, so about 260, 280, and you got to slow it down to about 72. And Christoph Boozy, he'll be there for about 40 seconds in the lane. iRacing does not like it when you speed into the pits. You will stay there for an incredibly long time. Goodbye points.
Yep, I've had that happen to me from the race lead. I was about a mile an hour or two over the speed limit, and yep, he certainly got popped for speeding with a 47-second time. And I lost a full lap because of it. And I think to myself, in no form of racing do you lose a full lap from speeding. But yeah, iRacing certainly trying to make it not worth it, as Mark Ponick in pit road as Ilbrink sets the fastest lap of the race at a 20.32.
And crucially, that fastest lap puts the gap up to 1.4 seconds. Ilbrink is absolutely flying at this point, and Guild doesn't know what's just hit him. It's like two boxers going out there trading punches, trading blows, and the moment someone throws a haymaker like that, what do you do to react? That's the question, and it's the mark of these racers when you throw a lap-orientated haymaker like Ilbrink's done right now. How do you respond?
Pit now, because you know Ilbrink is setting up. This is either this one or his next one is going to be his in lap, so he's using as much of that car as you possibly can. If I see Ilbrink set that time, I'm in next time around.
And Ilbrink is absolutely motoring now to get that in lap sorted the way that he knows how. He's got the wick up to 11, you would say, and he's going again.
Ilbrink stays out.
So will Dave Guild. So these are some brilliant lap times. Another 20.5, and Guild, it's now 1.8 seconds now. And the race starting, you'd feel, to just fall away ever so slightly in terms of the context of this one.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, I think Guild should have pit right there. That's the time where you make up. We've seen these cars and we've seen these drivers able to make that undercut work so dramatically. That would have been the perfect time for Guild to come into pit, because that would force Ilbrink's hand to come in, because he knows just as well as we do how big that undercut works.
Absolutely, and it is that undercut which has time and again been a difference maker in this sort of race. And Guild's not giving up. We haven't said he has, but this is going to be alert now as they go through. Mark Ponick, by the way, has really lost a lot of time as he's looked to try and go on through. I think that he may have just made his pit stop as he's gone through. So yes, he made his pit stop on lap 26. He's now on his 27th lap of the race now. So Mark Ponick is now a very interesting case, because it's 8 seconds between Ponick and Alvarez.
Yep, it is. Good looking just up at the front here. Both Ilbrink and Guild decide to stay out. We saw Ponick come into pit road, and yeah, Alvarez, well, he's still got a decent amount of time. I believe 8 seconds back to Alvarez, who we know Ponick was racing with, and we know Boozy, with his pit road speeding penalty, Ponick might be clear and free here in that third position right now. He may be able to coast the rest of the way home.
You still have Pavel Vasiliev to worry about over the course of this race. That'll be the only thing that he'll be keeping in the back of the mind. But at least for the moment, he'll be very much alert and aware of the fact that in this race, he has got to be on it. In comes Max Shabley now to make his pit stop, lap 28 of 42.
Yep. We'll see his entry into the box here. Does he slide through? No, he's good. 72 up in the air. Down, back on the ground after about 7 seconds. There he goes. 8.08 in the box for Shabley. Total time on pit road, a dead even 30 seconds. Thank you, Shabley. My OCD thanks you.
Yep, so Max Shabley making sure that it was right on the dot, the lane time. And look where Shabley's come out. He's ahead of Matt Quinn.
Yep, he has, certainly. And that's got to be because of the Quinn slide as Ilbrink comes into pit road and Dave Guild stays out.
Now, this is a race because Ilbrink's got to put a very good lap in on the board. He will go to the third last grid stall. He gets himself his service. He'll be up on the jacks. He'll be down in just a moment. He's down now, and away he goes. And the advantage he has by being in that third to last grid stall as he very nearly overextends through that first left, is that he'll be able to get on the power as much as he wants. This is one of the few pit lanes you could say as well, with that long sweeping exit to the pits as well here, Frank, that it's very difficult to gain an advantage by being in the front boxes.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's a very difficult, you're right, it's a very difficult and sharp left, especially if you're in that first or second pit stall. As, boy, look at where Pavel Vasiliev has come out. He has come out right behind Mark Ponick. We just saw it on board with Vasiliev. That is how close the battle for third is right now.
And I tell you what, with the way that Vasiliev has made his stop, I wouldn't be surprised if he sits behind until lap 42 to try and save some fuel.
Yeah, that might be the case. Vasiliev came in, did a 7.12 second stop. Fastest stop out of anyone so far today. And also worth noting, Ilbrink and Gild were battling with each other. Gild decided to stay out and stays out again. Keeman and Vasiliev were battling it out. Keeman decided to stay out when Vasiliev comes in, and Keeman will run another lap as well.
They're probably going to try and run those tanks dry, know what they need, and go at the last possible minute to come down and make their stops. Hoekstra still needs to make his pit lane stop as well, I do believe. So he's also got that to think about on top of that as well. So some good work being conducted out there in the racing that we've got right now. Jeff Browning's also made his stop, it seems, and he is out ahead of the likes of Max Shabley. So he's got that working quite well. But now it's a case of Dave Gild and what laps he can run. A 20.5, I'd say, is pretty decent in terms of a lap time, but it's not setting the house on fire, so to speak.
No, that is a very, very good time for him, and that's the kind of lap time he needs to run, especially with Ilbrink, who's going to be running down. Going back to Danny Hoekstra, Hoekstra might, if he came into pit right now, he would come out in about 7th position, about a couple seconds ahead of Jeff Browning if he were to come in now as Guardarama in and out of the pit box. Here comes David Gild into pit road. Now Keeman 18 seconds adrift.
Yes, and he'll be looking at getting himself down into the pits. Ilbrink is there behind 19 seconds, or 20 seconds you could say, behind Dave Gild. So how's this stop going to look for Dave? He looks to try and find his marker box. He'll have the last box of anyone because he started on pole. Ilbrink now is coming down the front stretch. How close is this one going to be? At what point do you go? He's still in the lane. He's still there in the lane. And there he goes. Now it's going to be a race off, and it's clearly going to be a win for Paul Ilbrink then, as he will remain ahead. But Dave Gild, give him credit, he's kept that within a second.
Yep, Gild has brought that gap down because remember, Gild was about 2 seconds adrift of Ilbrink coming into pit road, and you saw on the run out how close those guys were. Danny Hoekstra in pit road as well. He has actually clawed about a second back on Ilbrink, has David Gild. So a very, very good stop for him.
Yep, an incredibly good stop then as he went through. Hoekstra out now behind Javier Alvarez. So that puts him in P7. Keeman then 5th position as he exits the pit. So we have a battle on for 1st and 2nd, and of course for 3rd and 4th as well, because Mark Ponick has eyes full in the mirrors of Pavel Vasiliev still. And Vasiliev is not going to give this one up, because you have to also remember Vasiliev is 100% for podiums this season.
Yep, he is. And Vasiliev, points leader as well, trying to gain as much points as he possibly can. He's going to lose a little bit to Ponick if he does finish behind him. Or pardon me, he's going to lose a little bit to Gild, because it looks as though with a 14-second gap, he is going to finish behind him. He's going to gain a lot over Christoph Boozy now because of that speeding penalty. He's mired back in 12th.
He is, and there's something else that's very key about where one Mr. Christoph Boozy is, because it's very nearly lapped before the pit stops that were coming in, so he had that to maybe think about. You've also got this 3-car scrap, which we were saying was going to go on until the end of the race. Browning versus Shabley versus Quinn. Yep,
and Quinn put himself, unfortunately, in this battle and put himself at the back of it with that slide off, which we saw happen live. Shabley putting up a very, very good fight here today. Had a spin earlier on. He qualified up in the 7th spot. He's certainly recovered nicely and still trying to work his way up and settled in the top 10 nicely here.
Yep, very much settled in is Danny Hoekstra, but he will see this as an opportunity lost in this sort of race. He had the race lead, of course, and then spun it on lap 1. So he'll be looking for a little bit of something out there at the moment as this battle continues in towards turn number 4 here for 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th positions in this race. No dice then for that at the moment. But now it's about what do you have for your best foot forward. Ilbrink, 20.7. Does put a good foot forward. Takes 4 tenths out of Dave Gill. The gap goes up to 1.4 seconds. Dave Gill needs to get those tyres in an operating window and pronto.
Yeah, and Gild has also got to work, has also got the knowledge that he's going to be a little bit lighter on fuel than Paul Ilbrink is, so that's going to give him a slight advantage unless Gild fueled the car up a little bit more to be able to run a little bit of a higher engine mix coming up through the end of this race. Is Vasiliev really starting to put it on Panik now?
Panik going all the way to the inside. He moves back to the outside. The one change of direction as they go into Desquita del Lago. Turns 4 and 5. The lakeside corner over there. And now you put the power back on for the exit. And really, you would say at this moment in time that Pavel Vasiliev wants that 3rd place. But he is not in a position right now where he can make it happen. And this is what you call pressure in a race. When you are stuck behind, you know there's nobody else who can really affect you. I am Keenan's 3 seconds down the road behind these drivers, not going quick enough to catch. This is where you start to work out what do you have and what does your opponent have.
Yep, you can definitely afford to be a little bit patient here because Panik really doesn't have a hope of catching Gild at 15 seconds up the road with only 8 laps to go. So Panik is going to be mirror driving here on Vasiliev, and Vasiliev has been consistently quicker than Keeman every single lap. So yeah, this is where that chess match begins to take place. You're looking at where the guy in front of you is strong. You're trying to pick out his weaknesses, and you're trying to hide as much of yours as possible so the other guy doesn't see where you are vulnerable.
Just a couple of retirements from this race. Marcellus Bruning early on after the lap 1 incident, and then Javier De La Fuente pulling it off on his own accord into the pits after running so far down the order. Close again, the atomic car goes, and it's worth keeping an eye on that team's championship on top of that as well, because Atomic are on top, 49 points to 31 at the moment for Radical's online track racer. But you'd feel that today Dave Gild would also put a very strong points all in for the Tulip Racing team along with Danny Hoekstra.
Yep, absolutely. And Hoekstra's actually gained about a second or so on Javier Alvarez. So it's certainly, that battle's certainly not done. Hoekstra, there's a chance in these last couple of laps that Hoekstra can get around the 7 of Alvarez and jump up another position.
Yeah, I've just noticed a spin down at Mahulo corner. I think it's Rogenbach who has gone around and had a big slide moment. So Rogenbach 2 laps down. He's going to have to be a little bit careful here with those instant points.
Yep, definitely. And he's had multiple offs in this race, has Rogenbach. Browning, Shapley, and Quinn still locked in this titanic battle here for the 8th position. This has been so much fun to watch these guys as Leonardo Fabian not that far up the road from them. He is not for position back in 14th.
No, it's definitely not for position for Leonardo Fabian. He'll be definitely trying to work out everything, but now look at how the draft comes into play. He moves over at the last possible moment. Browning says thank you over the radio, but is it going to be a thank you in jest? Because, there was a little think there from Shapley, and we got battles going on a little bit further forward, it seems.
Yeah, that was a late move from Shapley, as I think, Panik and Vasiliev still going at it.
Here comes Quinn.
Quinn will get the move done on Shapley, and it was because of that late move that Shapley made, set him up really bad going through turn 1, really slowed him down from where he needed to be, and that allowed Quinn to jump right on him.
Absolutely. I'm sure that Shapley was trying to be Juan Pablo Montoya in the Williams against Michael Schumacher, but did not work in that instance, so had to back out of it, and suddenly there was Matt Quinn, who would very much like to get by Jeff Browning as well, pick up one more position, give as much as he possibly can out there on track. Lead gap is up now to 2.4 seconds. Ilbrink is just teeing off quick lap after quick lap. There's nothing you can do about it, but now here comes the chance for Vasiliev through turn number 3, and he's a little slow on the power output through that section of track. I wonder if he's using that as an element of fuel save, because he looks so good out there right now. He doesn't need to attack just yet. He's still got 7 or now 6.5 laps to go.
Yeah, and if you look coming out of turn 3, Vasiliev he always takes a wider line than Panik. Panik is able to keep it a lot closer to that DRS board on the inside near the pit wall. Vasiliev just floats out a little bit every single time. Clearly not hurting him. He's still right there, but that could be a weakness later. If Vasiliev gets around Panik and Panik can mount a counterattack, that might be somewhere Panik will be looking.
It definitely will be, and that sort of look for Pavel Vasiliev will be crucial in terms of how this race will finish off. Everyone knows that he wants those points, but again, there is traffic. It's Rogan Buck just in front, so again, it'll be another case of we're not going to be able to reach this time, but we'll again have to look. Jeff Browning's actually just lost 2 positions here to both Quinn and Chablis as they went through turn 1. He lost the first one through corner number 1 there, Frank, and then the second one on the outskirts of 3.
And you see right here, look again, we're on board with Vasiliev there. You saw how much wider he was coming out of turn 3 than Panik in front of him. And we'll go back now and see how Browning got passed by Quinn. It looked like Quinn was just a draft up and Chablis just taking advantage of the open lane.
And Browning's there over on the radio saying, you know, I'm going to protest that one, Max. You did not make that pass cleanly. You track extended to get by me.
Let's see. It's coming up right now. This is coming into turn 4. He's just on that line. And no. Oh, wow. Went way off in turn 4. I don't know if he has merit on the protest because he was already ahead of him going into turn 4, but there's no doubt about it. Right where I believe it was Leclerc had went off either last year or 2 years ago. That's how far off Chablis went to try to get around him as here comes Vasiliev for 3rd.
Yeah, Vasiliev trying to get the move done, and he has around the outside. Lap 38 starts, and he's got that one done. Of course, his teammate has just redressed the position back to Jeff Browning, so Chablis given up an attempt to attack in order to make sure that everything's all nice and calm with the stewarding team at the end of the day. So now you've got Vasiliev up there in 3rd, and he's only going to be losing minimal points to Dave Guild, which I think will be a very nice point for him, because I think in terms of the championship points, he will increase his championship lead.
Yeah, it looks like he will, certainly, with Boozy down in 11th. There's really no chance at that as Chablis once again now going around Browning, and both of them have contact coming through turn 1. And that's, boy, we'll take a look at the replay on that, but that's sure not going to go over well.
It looked to me like Jeff Browning was trying to cut back, and he just didn't leave himself enough room as Chablis had taken the corner, had committed his line through, and there's not much you can do when you go through that. Some good avoidance going down the hill there from Leonardo Fabian, but really that is one which just boiled over a little bit, and a bit over-aggressive on that cutback then for Jeff Browning. He just didn't hit the brakes enough. We
were on board with Browning. He was locked up that entire way going down into turn 1, and it's, you could say he tried to cut back. You could say Chablis swung out a little too far. But that's a racing incident right there, and unfortunate for both of them, especially because of what happened the lap before.
Absolutely, but you have to also remember at that point when Chablis does extend out, he's going to get the all clear from the spotter that he's got there. So he's got every right to take as much track as he wants to.
Oh, he absolutely does. And again, that's also, we saw Browning locked up that entire way going down into turn 1. So he's trying to outbrake Chablis on the outside to try to keep side by side with him going into the second bit. As now here comes Chablis into pit road, and you can see the damaged rear wing on that number 72, and that, what was a good points day for Atomic, has now turned into a good points day. Not as good as it could have been, though.
Yeah, and that's going to hurt them in the long run. They know that Tulip Racing are now going to outscore them here today with a guarantee because Hoekstra is ahead and those points are going to be dropped. Guadarrama will go through, maybe Jean-Michel Gagnon, Leonardo Fabian as well. So in the late stages, not ideal is the way forward. Now, we were talking, of course, about Danny Hoekstra trying to chase down that gap to Javier Alvarez. Ultimately, it's equalized out at about 6 seconds.
Yeah, it's gone the other way. He's losing ground to Alvarez. Last time we left this battle, he was about 4.6 back. That's now gone up to 5.5 back. So Alvarez has certainly found something. A little bit quicker this last lap was Hoekstra, pulled 0.2 of a second back, but Alvarez has had that consistency in lap pace that Hoekstra has not.
0.2 of a second won't pay the bills in terms of this race then, and they understand this as well, and they will also be understanding how this series is really concocted at this moment in time. They've got Monza coming up then in 2 weeks' time on the 22nd of May, and that will be for these drivers a case of fast pace, fast flowing action, which will be a little bit different from this Interlagos track.
Yeah, and if you remember, that was the season opener last season, had such drama. First lap, guys like Danny Hoekstra were taken out of it completely, and then you had the big incident at the end of the last lap. So there's a lot of things that we saw at Monza last time out make you really excited for coming up in 2 weeks' time.
Tell you what, though, not giving up here is Mark Ponnick. The gap's half a second. He still has a sniff of that podium.
Yep, certainly does, and he's using that draft the same way Guild was doing, the same way Keeman was doing, using that draft to stay up in front as Chablis has come back into the lane.
Yep, so Chablis really struggling then, as his day's pretty much going to be all but done with a couple of laps to go, as the race lead gap is now up nearly 4 seconds here for Dave Guild. He has tried everything, he's thrown everything he could possibly get at Paul Ilbrink, but at the moment he'll be hoping for one big mistake out of Ilbrink, which I doubt we are going to see. Battle though still continuing right now for third place. Mark Ponnick is throwing every single thing he can at Pavel Vasiliev, but he's still got to close, I would say, about 5 car lengths here at this moment as we do start the final lap then of this race. Vasiliev doing just enough at this moment in time to keep this one at a stretch, and also Jeff Browning will have to be alert on the final lap because this is going to be key for the championship. Christoph Boozy now is in a position where he can try and go out and really attack and gain that 9th place, and you never know how many points really matter come the end, but it seems like that is the case at the moment. A run through towards turn number 4 then for Pavel Vasiliev. He is just going to be able then at this moment in time to fend it off, but there are no guarantees. That run to the line is going to be so crucial between these two as they will look to figure it out. Ponnick would desperately want to get up onto that podium, but through Mahulo and towards the junction corner of Junsao will come Paul Ilbrink. It has been a slow start to his season and one which he wishes that he could have back, but he can't rewind time. What he can do is go out there and score very, very handsomely from this point onwards. There's a reason why he had a black stripe for pro license. Paul Ilbrink takes the win at Interlagos, with Dave Guild taking second position. Vasiliev has run slightly wide through the final corner now, Frank. Here comes a chance for Mark Ponnick.
Yeah, he's got a chance. Also, I am Keeman, that last lap going through junction, had an off. That's moved Alvarez right up to the back of him. Here comes the run for Ponnick, seeing if he can get the podium. He's just going to miss it. Alvarez a lot closer to Keeman than Quinn was. This is going to be a side-by-side battle for the 5th position. It's going to be Alvarez just barely clipping it by 100th of a second.
200ths only. 200ths only. That was the difference between Alvarez and Keeman to the line as he sniped 5th place away from Keeman with a mistake 2 laps from the end. Boozy's also got his move done on the last lap on Jeff Browning, so he will move up into 9th as he tries to salvage from a speeding penalty what was a race which was looking quite good. He was going to be up there with Ponnick and Vasiliev fighting for the podium, so one I'm sure Christoph Boozy once back here in this one. But again here, Frank, just some wonderful racing.
Yeah, it was. This was fantastic racing all the way through this race here tonight. And Ilbrink, this is the Paul Ilbrink that we have expected. This is the Paul Ilbrink that we have come to know. Just a dominant performance all day long. Got the lead with a little bit of help with Hoekstra spinning off, but still had a dominant car all race long.
Let's go to confirmation then of results here. Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache here today. Paul Ilbrink started third on the grid. There was a lot of talk about how everyone was trying to make that progress forward, and it was a case of you never know where the form book is, but sometimes you have to look a little bit into the past. 57 minutes and 2 seconds. He wins by 5.9 over Dave Guild, with Pavel Vasiliev rounding out the podium, just about fending off Mark Ponick, who would have hoped that line was about a few yards further forward. Someone who wished the yards were a little bit further back would have been I.M. Keeman, but he has actually just been demoted down to 8th position overall because he's gone over the 10-point instant limit in the final couple of laps, and as such, he will get a 30-second time penalty added onto his race. So Alvarez will be classified as finishing it off in 5th position ahead of Danny Hoekstra in 7th, which now demotes I.M. Keeman to 8th place overall in the race. He has been demoted after the checkered flag, with Christoph Boozy in 9th position, who misses out on promoting himself ahead of I.M. Keeman by just under a second, and Jeff Browning rounding out then at the top 10 overall. Last drive on the leading lap, started 11th, finished 11th, had a lot of fan favorites in the YouTube chat for us here today. That was Esteban Guadarrama out there on circuit, with Jean-Michel Gagnon then in 12th. And then following that, Leonardo Fabian, Max Shabley, Alexander Rogenbach, and then you had Javier De La Fuente retiring 2 laps from the end, and Marcellus Bruning on top of that as well. Frank.
Yeah, and unfortunately the sim crashed on me here, so this is going to be a radio broadcast from here on out. But we'll go now to our interview portion of the evening here. Paul Ilbrink, the race winner. Paul, this was very, very much a return to form from you. Did an absolutely fantastic job all race long.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy I get a decent result this season. Like, it's been the first time, I think. But yeah, I was like amazed by the pace in qualifying by Dave and Danny as well. And then I got a bit lucky to get the lead after Danny spun on lap 1, but Dave, until like the final couple of laps, Dave really put the pressure on me, and like I guess it showed because I made a couple of mistakes, which really made it difficult to drive away from him. But in the end, I managed and finally could secure another win again.
Just going through the last lap or so, or the last lap or so before the pit stop, you had really found some pace that you hadn't had all race long. Were you running your car in a lower mode, or did something with the track just grip up?
Not really. Like, as long as Dave was like within 1 second behind me, I couldn't really like do much. Like, I could use DRS, but he would stay with me anyway. So, in that last lap and one time earlier in that first stint, I think there was like a moment that I had like a gap of 8-9 tenths coming into the final corner, and I decided like, if he's not like catching up there, I'm going to use DRS and drive away, which I did in both cases. So you just make the gap big enough to like not have him have draft anymore. So I think that explains it. Then I like try to put like the best laps in to like actually drive away when he wasn't sitting in the draft anymore, which kind of worked. But I couldn't drive far away anyway, so I always had to keep an eye on on the relatives and the mirror to see where he was and if he would catch up again. But he made it difficult for sure.
Yeah, he certainly did a fantastic job of keeping you honest all race long. Going into Monza next week, you had a decent race there last week. You'd made the mistake early and then had to battle back from it last year. What are your expectations? What are your thoughts going into Monza next 2 weeks' time?
Well, considering how the season has been going before today, not that looking forward to that much at turn 1 at Monza, because it surely guarantees a lot of chaos all the time. So I hope that will stay clean, and after that, hope we have a good race like we had today.
Well, hoping so. Anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Sure, you guys for doing the broadcast. It's always a pleasure to watch it back later. And all my teammates at Radicals Online and our partners and sponsors Six Sideways, Cranfield Simulation, JRT, Armor Center, Track Racer, Turn Racing, NOTF Podcast, and Pixel Dust for doing our nice skins.
All right, there is your race winner. First race win of the season for Paul Ilbrink. Congratulations.
Thanks.
A great result there for Paul Ilbrink. I do believe that we will be getting Dave Guild in here, second position overall in that race. Dave, we've got to talk qualifying first and foremost. The Tulip racing cars looked absolutely sensational. First time in the season that we have seen a front row lockout from Tulip.
Yeah, mate, that was very surprising. And Danny was both very surprised at that. But yeah, no, it was a great drive. It was really, I really enjoyed it.
Well, the enjoyment was certainly there. You really put the pressure on, of course. Your teammates span on lap 1, so it was up to you to put the main bulk of points down on the board. But it really seemed like every time that there was a battle going on, it looked like you were going to drop outside of a second. You pulled it back. You then fell back again. You pulled it back. But at what point did this race just seem to fall away from you? Was it just a case of being unable to hold that same level of consistency of pace that Paul did?
Yeah, I mean, just before the pit stop, he started to pull away a little bit. And my old man was in my ear. He's like, pit now. I'm like, no, I'm going all the way. And I did. I caught back up to him after the pit stop. But unfortunately, when I come out the pits, I couldn't find the button for my pit limiter. I was like just bashing buttons. And I was like, no. And so I lost a bit of time there. And I just come out just behind him. But then I just started pushing a little bit too hard too soon. And in the end, I was like, look, these second place to me in this league's like massive. So I think Paul controlled it from the get-go anyway. If he wanted to put his foot down a bit more, he could have.
I mean, it's absolutely massive for you. You now move up to second position in the championship. So definitely worth keeping in mind with that. So the focus now surely is 2 weeks' time at Monza.
Yes, mate. We'll be on that tomorrow. We'll start training for that. And, yeah, we look forward to that one. Let's try and avoid the carnage in the first chicane.
Well, the floor is yours here, Dave. Shout out sponsors. Anyone you'd like to thank. Second place here today.
Yeah, thank you to all the guys at Tulip. Bert for being a spotter. You've got Danny and Mark and Jeff was all training together. Thanks for all your help. And a big thanks to my old man for just sitting in my ear, just keeping me cool. And a massive thanks to you guys, because without you guys, none of this would be happening. Like, I really enjoy it.
No worries at all. Dave Guild then puts the Tulip racing car second position here today, moves up to P2 in the championship, and Frank Pavel Vasiliev then gets third position overall.
User was moved out of your channel.
Yep, he absolutely does.
User was moved to your channel.
Pavel, you had such a great run all race long. Mark Ponick, coming down to those last couple of laps, you were able to get right up to him after that pit stop. How did you get so close to him coming out of the pit lane?
Oh, guys, I'm surprised myself. When I came out of pits and saw Mark literally within a second, I was like, wow, what the hell happened here? But I think I had a pretty good entry on the pit. Like, that was on the edge of penalty. So that probably gave me a bit of time. And then, yeah, I just did a good fuel strategy. I pretty much had zero fuel left after last lap. So yeah, managed to pit entry did it for me, I think.
It certainly looked as though you did have a very good pit entry. But going back even before that battle that you were having with Christoph Boozy and with IM Keeman, some of the best racing we've seen out of eFormula. I'm sure that had to be fun from your perspective as well.
Oh yeah, it was very fun. At the same time, it was very intense. I had to be conscious of off tracks because I think I had 6 at that time, and towards the end of the race, I had 8 off tracks. It didn't help that I had a bit of a moment with Javier earlier in the race. By the way, I apologize to Javier, but yeah, it worked out fine. I managed to DRS at the right time to get the gap extended from Kieman. And yeah, just kept doing my race, kept doing my laps, and yeah, was able to catch up to Christoph as well.
And you certainly had a fantastic run. You're 3 for 3 so far in podiums in your eFormula career. Do you think you can make it 4 for 4 at Monza next 2 weeks' time?
Oof, I don't know. I want to. I wish I could. I'm gonna practice hard, and we're gonna see what happens. To be honest, I didn't feel extremely confident at Interlagos today, especially after qualifying. I really struggled to get a good lap in. And yeah, it worked out well in the end. So we'll see. It's a long season. Monza is an interesting track, very dangerous in a lot of places. So anything can happen, I think.
Anything usually can and usually does happen. Any shout outs you want to give before we let you go?
Yeah, for sure. Once again, thanks for your broadcast, guys. You're doing an amazing job. Thanks to organizers and yeah, all the participants. It was a really fun and mostly clean race. And yeah, I'm really enjoying the season so far.
All right, your third place finisher tonight, Pavel Vasiliev. Congratulations, bud.
Thanks, guys.
User was moved out of your channel.
There we have it. The top three all find themselves with something to take away from this sort of event. And of course, Frank, 2 weeks' time, we'll be here once more with ESPN, the Esports Broadcasting Network, bringing you the fourth round of the eFormula series over at Monza. It's a track which really stands out like no other. It is a massive throwback to the past. It is high speed and chicane, which, you know, you build a track like that right now in terms of any sort of real world, it's almost like St. Andrews in golf. You'd be crucified for it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a beautiful circuit. It's an amazing place to watch a race and an amazing place to run a race. You think it's really a bunch of long straightaways, a U-turn, and 3 chicanes. It's really not that hard a racetrack to master, but it is so difficult because you have to set these cars up to go so quick down the straight line that it really hurts the performance in the corners. You have to find that balance of speed and handling. And at Monza, anything can happen, especially going down into turn 1 and into turn 3.
Yes, the Rettifilo and the Rogier are going to be some very important things to keep in mind. But that brings an end to proceedings here today, tonight, wherever you are around the world. Massive thanks has to go to the team at the eFormula series putting this one all together. And, of course, the work that has been done here with us at ESPN. If you haven't had the chance already, you can like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content brought to you all throughout the weeks as we get ourselves gearing up here in May, the month of May, as a certain sim racing broadcaster absolutely loves to say. But from Frank Marchese pulling double duties, cameras and commentary, myself, Jake Sperry, it is Paul Ilbrink finally getting his season back on track. He'll have a smile about the way he's wanted this one to go and knows he can start to put the gears together to try and work on a second championship charge. But Tulip Racing today proved that they are not just there to fill out numbers. They are there to put themselves in the title hunt. The likes of Dave Guild has a really good chance to go through, but it is still Pavel Vasiliev's up at the top. And Monza, well, you know it's the Temple of Speed. We'll see you all with a tithing in 2 weeks' time.